Now joining.
Councilmember Brown, Councilmember DePorter, are you online?
Hi, Bev. Yes, Vic.
Thank you.
How's it going? You got new technology? Absolutely, yeah. Awesome. I took a walk around the park last night. I gave it to Nancy. Well, it was the agenda for the day. I asked her to, when I was everyone.
Dennis, are you on the phone? Dennis? Dennis Brown. Aging Dennis Brown. No, okay. All right, well, we probably hear him when he... Yeah. All right, so we'll start off with... Okay, calling to order the special session of the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities Board. And roll call, please, Bev?
Chair Kavanaugh,
Here.
Board Member Leger,
Here.
Board Member Tolis,
Here.
Board Member Yates,
Present.
Board Member DePorter,
Here.
Vice Chair and Board Member Brown are absent at this moment.
Okay, any speaker cards, Bev?
No.
Consideration of approving the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District Board meeting minutes of June 16, 2016. There is no staff report. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any speaker cards on that?
No, Board Chairman.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Chairman, 5-0.
For items 2 and 3, there will be one staff report. Open the public hearing regarding Resolution EMCFD 2017-01, approving the tentative budget of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, and ending June 30th, 2018, setting a hearing date for the budget. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is the tentative budget for fiscal year 17-18. As you are aware, the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District is a infrastructure improvement district that was approved several years ago at the
Now
time
joining.
that the Eagle Mountain development was created. And so there are bonds that are covered by this district, and each of the homeowners in the Community Facilities District at Eagle Mountain all have an assessment that they're all paying and contributing on their property taxes. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to have Craig come up and give further details on this.
Okay, any questions from the board? And any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Consideration of resolution E EMCFD 2017-01 is just presented. Any further board discussion? Can I get a motion
Mayor, so moved.
and a
I'm sorry,
second?
Chairman.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Chairman, 7-0.
All right, and a motion to adjourn,
Mayor, so moved.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Ready for number 2? Okay, open the special session of the Cottonwoods Maintenance District Board. Roll call, please, Bev.
Chair Kavanaugh?
Here.
Vice Chair Magazine? Here. Board Member Leger?
Here.
Board Member Toles?
Here.
Board Member Brown? Board Member Yates?
Present.
Board Member DePorter?
Here.
Okay. Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Consideration of approving the Cottonwoods Maintenance District Board meeting minutes of June 16, 2016. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Okay, any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman, 6-0.
Item 2 and 3, there will be one staff report. Open the public hearing regarding Resolution CMD 2017-01, approving the tentative budget of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, and ending June 30th, 2018, and setting a hearing date for the budget and annual assessments. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is the tentative budget for fiscal year 17-18. It amounts to $5,454. This budget is
Now
for-
joining.
This is for the maintenance improvements that we do annually in the Cottonwoods maintenance area. It includes landscape maintenance, or annual reserve for exterior wall maintenance, and we have a reserve, postage, and advertising. So they all total of $5,454.
Okay, thank
That
you.
I'd be happy to answer any
Thank you,
questions.
Grady. Any questions from the board? No? Speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Okay, and I will close the public hearing. Consideration of Resolution CMD 2017-01, approving the tentative budget of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, and ending June 30th, 2018, and setting a hearing date for the budget and annual assessment. Any further board discussion? Can I get a motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chairman, 7-0.
And the last is a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we go into our regular meeting, and I will call that meeting to order, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our invocation. Pastor Gary Emmons is here with us from Christ Church.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, these are incredible people, and you have lifted them up in this community to serve this community and to make Fountain Hills a beacon on the hill. Lord, 99.9 people don't want to do what they're doing. So I ask you to lay your hands on them tonight, give them clarity, give them unity, Father. Give them a peace of understanding that they're doing incredible work, and sometimes they don't get recognized for how much they put into this serving this community. So I lift them up, Father. I praise you. I ask that you bless everyone here, and I pray in Jesus' name. And all God's people say,
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Gary. Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, and now we have roll call. Roll call, please, Bev.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Vice Mayor Magazine? Here. Councilmember DePorter?
Here.
Councilmember Yates?
Present.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Toles? Here. Councilmember Leger?
Okay, let's see. Proclamation. We have a proclamation today declaring May 7th to the 13th Municipal Clerks Week in the town of Fountain Hills. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organization. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now therefore, I, Linda M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do recognize the week of May 7th through May 13th, 2017 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Beverlyn Bender, to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent.
Mayor. Oh.
Mayor, if I may. I've had an opportunity to work with Bev for quite a while, and as I listened to that proclamation, I mean, you're the epitome of that proclamation, and so helpful, always there, tremendous job. I've never really understood the value of a town clerk until I had an opportunity to work with Bev on several occasions, so thank you so much for your service.
Okay, anyone? Alan?
I've rarely met a professional staff person who is as efficient as Bev and who does it with such great humor. I really appreciate the fact that when I call her and tell her I can't figure out my darn laptop, that she's very patient with me. But seriously, she does an outstanding job, and I want to thank her for that.
To echo what everyone says, I'm sure it's like herding cats, keeping us all in line. But you do it with such ease, and I truly appreciate it, as busy as we all are up here, to have those reminder emails. And usually it's a phone call 3 times a day to remind you. I really appreciate you, Bev, and so thank you for everything you do.
And the only thing I will add is that thank you for helping everyone else, because you're always there to back someone up in the staff if someone's not there or someone actually needs to go to lunch once in a while. You're right there to fill in. No matter what the job is, you'll step in to help. So we appreciate everything that you do. Okay? Another round of applause.
I feel very bad for Bev because this is what she was trying to avoid.
I second everything that they all said.
Okay. All right, next we have recent events related to economic development. I'm going to start off with Councilman Yates. You have 2 things you want
Thank you,
to
Mayor.
talk about?
Yes, last Saturday, if you weren't down at the fountain, we had the Relay for Life cancer fundraiser and awareness. Tremendous event. What's really exciting is that this was something that started in 1985 by a cancer surgeon. Started with about 15, 20 people, and it is now grown into 5,200 communities in 27 countries. So it is really a global effort. Cancer is a scary thing. It's number 2 cause of death in the United States. It's number 1 in Arizona. Almost 50% of cancer-related deaths could be preventable with just some basic don't smoke, eat right. I won't even go on the exercise route, but get yourself checked out. Just some very simple things that we could do, but it was an honor and privilege to announce them. I was even able to hand out some awards, some medals to some cancer survivors. Just some incredible people there. It was a great event to have here in Fountain Hills. And I will.
just want to add thanks, because I think this is either the third or fourth year that,
The second one.
it wasn't the third?
You know what, it was the third. I
think it's the
apologize.
third year that you've done this, so thank you for that.
No problem. I do want to give a shout out to our own Clayton Corey, who is one of the assistant chairs MC. Fountain Hills resident, very involved with the town, was able to participate and did a tremendous job.
Good, okay. And you've got a second one on the school?
I will defer to Councilman Leger. Councilman Leger, you want to update on our interview process that we had today?
Sure, each year, it's called a C5 program at the middle school, elementary school. In essence, what C5 does is it takes fifth graders and it prepares them for their careers, and it's pretty awesome. They have a business simulation that will be happening in a couple weeks, and today, Councilman Yates, myself, and so many people from the community were there helping, interviewing these young people. And as Cecil and I discussed after it, man, just so impressed with some of these young folks. And as I was sharing with Bev coming in, one of the questions was heroes. Who are your heroes? Someone you may know, someone perhaps you don't know, a sports figure. 80% of the kids said, my parents. And I thought that was pretty cool. But great event. So thanks, Cecil.
Good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything you want to add?
Just tremendous. I couldn't believe how some of these folks at 10 and 11 years old already had an idea. I want to be a pilot. I want to be an electrical engineer. I was like, I don't think I could have spelled electrical at 10 years old, but it was very impressive to Councilman Leger's point.
Okay.
Great event. Thank you.
Good, okay, good. Okay, and I just have one item. We did have our MAG Economic Development Committee meeting. We had a great presentation by Brigadier General Art Cameron, who is the site director for Luke Air Force Base at Lockheed Martin. The general provided us with a report on the economic impact of aerospace and defense, including the F-35. That's a great airplane. There are 9 partner nations that have collaborated on the building of the F-35, and 8 of those nations send their pilots to our Dover Training Center. Currently, there are 220 F-35s, and by 2020, there will be 619 in total. Even though Luke Air Force Base is located out in the west, in Glendale, the economic impact to the region is substantial at $503,800,000, and they provide 6,020 jobs. Lockheed Martin also takes very seriously community help, and they assist at centers like St. Mary's Food Bank and Habitat for Humanity. That's all I have. Thank you. All right, we have call to the public. Do we have anything?
No, Mayor.
Okay, let's go to our consent agenda. There are 5 items. Can I get a motion to accept as read?
So moved.
Okay, and I need a roll call on that.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Magazine? Aye. Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Councilmember Toles? Aye. Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Mayor 7-0.
On our regular agenda, consideration of Resolution 2017-12, setting forth the tentative budget and establishing the maximum budget amount for the town of Fountain Hills for a fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, and ending June 30th, 2018. The council may address any or all items contained in the budget document and initiate any changes prior to the adoption. Grady, want to get started?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to present the tentative budget before the council tonight. One of the most important things we do as a community is we go through an extensive budgeting process. As you know, our budget is really a policy statement. It's a statement of the council's priorities for the next fiscal year. It's an operations plan for the staff. A lot of work went into this. We started actually about a month earlier than normal so that we can get this process started earlier and kind of know where we were financially. And then we started preparing the budget and going through, and there was a lot of effort on the part of the department directors There was also obviously a lot of number crunching that our finance director, Craig Rodolfi, and our accountant, Beata Bogdan, did as well. And so we're here at this point now after several months to present for your consideration the tentative budget. I'm going to go ahead and call on Finance Director Rodolfi to come up and do the presentation. I will tell you that we have reduced the size of this. Originally, I believe we were at 96 or 99 slides that we reviewed last week, and I believe we're down to 24 slides. So I think this will go through quickly, and then we also have some updates that the council asked for, some adjustments, for consideration of adjustments to the budget that we went ahead and put in, and there will be some explanation on that later. That I'll go ahead and turn it over to the finance director.
Thank you. Mayor and town council members, as was presented, we are presenting our tentative budget. Maximum amount for the current year, which you cannot alter and increase. You may be able to reduce and modify, but once we accept the maximum amount, it cannot be increased. So our maximum amount for this year is $35,333,495. It's approximately $1 million higher than the information that was presented on April 24th. The reason for that is twofold, two changes that council requested. One that council requested, one that I needed to make. The one that I needed to make was to recognize a change in our practice for third-party inspections. We are now going to have third-party inspections report to the town as opposed to the way we're currently doing it. In order to accomplish that, we needed to add both $950,000 to revenues as well as $950,000 to expenditures. So no net change, but a gross up on both the revenue and expense side.
Again, on this particular matter is, we will not be spending that unless we have the revenue coming in, and we'll know immediately because we will negotiate these third-party agreements for a fixed amount not to exceed a certain number, which will likely be at the building permit level or lower.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
For further clarification, so that means if a project comes in that we need the services, it's a pass-through?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Very similar to how we handle our grant revenue in the special revenue. We budget $1 million, expecting any unanticipated grants, and we also budget $1 million to be able to spend that grant revenue if it materializes.
We sincerely believe this is a really good move because this is going to provide additional accountability for the services provided by the third party. We have found that sometimes the third party plan review and inspectors sometimes feel like there's a loyalty to the folks that are paying them, and they're really working for us though, and so we really want to set that straight. The other thing is the way it's set right now is that the third-party firms are billing the clients, the developers directly, and then they're paying them directly. So in other words, we don't see that. So this will change that entirely.
The other change that we incorporated was the addition of a staff position for economic development, totaling a little over $67,000.
And if I can just talk on that subject, this is really, there's a couple different factors going on here. I did have a chance to meet with Scott Cooper, our Economic Development Director, and he had originally proposed this in the budget for next year. Obviously, when I went through the budget and looked at positions, I was concerned only because there were other high priority positions that I didn't authorize because I didn't see the funding really being there. But this is one of these situations where it's a matter of timing. We're, here at the tentative budget, we just had our meeting last week, so we had to make some quick adjustments if this was going to be in the budget. And so I did have a good discussion with the Economic Development Director, and he felt very strongly about that marketing contract that would go and try to help develop strategies for filling the vacant commercial that we have, which is over 35%, I believe. So this is an enhancement to have the service level increased by one position. And so I believe this is a matter that the council, it's in their purview. If they wanted to increase the service levels, it's their decision. So that's why it's in the budget at this point.
Questions? Councilman Tolos?
Councilman Magazine, you want to go first?
Sure. When this came up 2 weeks ago, I leaned over to Councilman Yates and said that I favor this additional position. I've had talks with Scott off and on for a couple of years now about his office, and I've been a tremendous booster of what he's done. I think it's been, he's made a significant addition to our opportunities here in town, and so I have publicly and privately congratulated him for that. When I left the chambers, I started thinking about it. And I decided that my knee-jerk reaction was, yeah, let's do it. My second reaction is, I think it's a mistake. And I want to explain why. First, the question in my mind is, we're talking about $67,000, as I understand it, including benefits.
That is correct.
And that is likely to go up every year with cost of living increases and so on. And the question in my mind is, have we really looked at the whole budget to see that that is our number one priority for additional funding? I know that we had green sheets that listed a long list, fairly long list of requests from departments. Some were approved, some weren't. And I just don't think that we should ad hoc, excuse me, decide to spend $67,000. If we have the $67,000, I don't think it should be done ad hoc. I think you have to look carefully at everything. If this is the number one priority, so be it. But even if it is the number one priority, we all know, we all talk about, excuse me, getting choked up. We talk a lot about the shortfall we're facing this year and every year hereafter. And in fact, we had this discussion about the shortfalls going out 20 years, which look, I'll use the word daunting, which to me is a major understatement. And so we have discussed during that meeting and in the past whether or not we should add things to the budget. And mostly, the council agreed that we should only add something that's absolutely necessary, not something that's nice to have. Well, I think that adding a staff person at this point would be very good for the town. It would be nice to have, but I have to question whether or not it's really necessary. Third thing, we have a town manager for a reason. He presents the budget. He makes his best judgment as to how we should spend the revenue that we have. And he decided, he concluded apparently, that the best use of the funds, at least for economic development, is to increase the economic development budget by $50,000, I think is the amount, for a marketing contract. He didn't recommend an additional personnel. And I think it's a mistake if we start, I'll use the word usurping, but that's a little strong. If we start second-guessing the manager, particularly on personnel issues, which are within his bailiwick. Like the rest of you, I talk to people all over town almost every day. And we talk about the deficits and the problems we have and the things we can't do. It's a bit hard for me to reconcile talking about these deficits, talking about the possibility of raising revenues, and then turning around and approving a $67,000 expenditure for personnel that is not recommended by our manager.
Councilman Tolos?
All right, thank you. A couple of things. At our April 24th meeting, I had questioned a couple of things in regards to the economic development budget. Number one, was the $50,000 for a marketing agreement and the continuation of that marketing agreement. Since that meeting, and I questioned it because I felt that I would rather see a body here that could market and help Scott to retain the businesses here, build relationships with businesses here, and to do our best to recruit new businesses, to look at the town-owned land on Shea that needs to have a highest and best use, and how can we market something to go there, whether it be apartment complex that we can do a land lease on, some sort of a highest and best use to increase our sales tax revenues. I was not advocating both. And if we look back at the minutes of our meeting last, on April 24th, I wasn't advocating both. I was advocating that we take the money, the $50,000, and we look at adding a staff member that could help Scott to build the economic development team here. I have a hard time swallowing any consultant contracts or outside marketing contracts. Fountain Hills is a unique community, and we are, the demographics of our community and the commercial sector of our community is driven by the traffic count, it's driven by the 5-mile out radius of the people that we have that will ultimately be shopping in Fountain Hills. We got a tremendous downtown project that Shea Connolly is actively marketing their own product there. We have the Target Plaza that has tremendous vacancies. However, some of the vacancies in that complex, which include the old Kentucky Fried Chicken location, on the other side of the street, the Walgreens. Here's why you have some vacancies over there, and here's why they have a hard time putting people in that plaza, because the rents are high, and they need to adjust them accordingly to get people in. And secondly, we have not, and I think we should look at legally whether we can address corporate leases coming into this town that have a dark clause that allow businesses to board up their buildings and leave vacant buildings but continue to pay leases in this town. When we have anchor tenants that leave, no one wants to go to rent in that facility. You look what happened to Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks is on every corner in every community, and they shut down one of their stores at Target. They shut down the store when they have large, big corporations that are shutting their buildings and leaving them dark. If there's a way, and I'll defer to our town attorney at some point, whether we can have an ordinance that stops corporate leases from allowing a dark clause in their contracts. That's a problem that we have. So I support Scott. I support all his efforts. He's doing a great job. And I support bringing someone on that can help to market this community, to work with the commercial entities. They all get paid commissions. They all get paid compensation to put deals together. Why we have to pay an outside marketing firm to help bring those deals together? We're not bringing Intel to Fountain Hills. We're not bringing Raytheon to Fountain Hills. We're filling vacancies that are either mom and pop stores or maybe a little bit larger scale, like some other big box stores at Target. There's one, but their companies need to do a lot to market those too. So I don't understand why we throw $50,000 at something like that. I'd like more clarification on it. I'd like to learn more about it. I talked to the president of MCO Properties, a commercial entity in town, and I found out a little bit about when Jeremy Hall was on the board for the chamber, and they had a company very similar to this that was looking to get the chamber to engage in a contract like this. And they decided that it was a waste, it was the wrong use of funds. And he advised me after that meeting, and I'd looked for outside advice, and I looked to help me understand, what do you think about this? He didn't think it was a good idea either, and here's a guy who's been in the corporate commercial world for the last 35 years. So I need more clarification on it. I support the employee, but I don't support these marketing agreements.
Okay, comments?
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Is that Councilman DePorter?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, I thought a lot about this after that meeting as well, and I don't feel like adding a position is a mistake. I did state my not so optimistic view of how a contract with that service provider would play out, just because I've just I guess basically have gotten limited ROI on contractors like that recently from what I've seen the service they provide. But some of the things that Alan said resonated with me, and one of them being, is this the highest and best use? I think that's the Cecil terminology of the money. And what he said about point number 3 about Grady being the professional staff lead and knowing how to allocate funds. That's the question that I was remiss between April 24th and now. I have not had a chance to sit down with Grady and ask him, is this what you would really use $67,000 for? Because he knows the big picture of all the asks. I certainly saw the green sheets, but he heard the pleas from the department leads. So, if there's other priority, I would like to see the money go to where that priority is. But I do support Scott, and if that priority is there, then I'm all for it.
Mayor, may I?
Councilman Brown?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, firstly, I believe that Scott is doing a great job, and he is the director of our economics development, and I also believe that Scott knows his needs better than we do as a council. I don't think we should be questioning Scott as to what he's asking for, and I have a proposal that I would like to present, and I believe that we should approve the budget and the budget for hiring the consultant group, because Scott tells us that this is what needs to be done. I also believe that we should approve the one-time full staffer, but not to hire the one-time staffer until we see how many useful leads are generated from the contract consulting group. And if, in fact, the contract consulting group does, in fact, overwhelm Scott with leads that are truly usable for the town of Fountain Hills, then I believe we should have the money in the budget to at least fund it. And if, in fact, we don't hire a full-time staffer to assist Scott, we will have money set aside in case we do need to assist another director in some manner. That is my thought on this situation.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilman Yates?
Thanks, Mayor. I sit in a unique seat because I work with municipalities across the valley, and it's I get teased a lot. I had a meeting 2 days ago with Eric Bott. He's the Assistant Director of Strategic Initiatives for Mesa, and they have a huge staff. I'm not saying that we're Mesa, but he was throwing some jabs at me and paying Scott some compliments, just that he knows him by name. But his literal question was, how on earth do you get anything done with one person? Straight up. And every community that I have property in, that I talk with economic development folks, it's an ongoing joke. How do you get anything done with one guy? And I'll give kudos to Jason Earp, and I think you know Jason. Jason is the Economic Development Director of Tolleson. Tolleson only has 7,000 people living there. They have a lot of daytime population, but even Jason Earp has a part-time person that helps. And I'm not saying you have to keep up with the Joneses, but when our whole tax structure is based on commerce, buying and selling of stuff, and we don't have somebody or don't give them the right tools to tap into that. It's not just about answering a phone call. It's about putting together information and getting it to some of these potential folks. Leveraging of information. We had a big meeting today with some folks who want to do business. They had no idea of some of the stuff. They just like Fountain Hills. But to be able to present them with some information on a much quicker basis, that is the speed of business. Janine Yurkovich in Surprise has a staff. She gets to fly, and I'm not saying we get these kind of budgets, but I'm just sharing you what we're up against. We've got some tremendous opportunities we may be on the short list, but if Scott or someone's not there to answer the phone call, honest to goodness, it's that fast. They go to the next place. It's not an expenditure, it's an investment. We're leveraging information. He needs help. And I can speak first-handedly because all the municipalities I work with, we are underserving our community, but by not providing him with some more help in this. And a $67,000, it's not an expenditure, this is an investment. And considering the majority of our revenue is based on commerce, how we can sit here and think, oh no, it's fine, he doesn't need it, is beyond me. I respect everybody's opinion here, honest to goodness I do, but to say this is just another line item expenditure when not too many years ago it was a part-time position blows my mind, absolutely blows my mind. I've already mentioned everybody some of the economic numbers. Phoenix is poised to average 1,400 people a week moving here. We're neck and neck with Austin, Texas. LA County is a distant third, and then it drops off. We've got a great opportunity. I think the timing is perfect to give him some help, to tap into some of that. And to Councilman Tolus's point, there are some functional and economic obsolescent buildings here. All the more reason why you need somebody who can make the deal, because the brokers, Zintars, God bless him, he puts his signs up and he can't leverage the deal like an economic development person. So in order to go into some of these functional or economic obsolescent properties, you need somebody who speaks the language, who can come up with an out-of-the-box idea, whether it be an internet company or any number of things to take on some of this space, to maybe help negotiate. I view this as an investment, as I keep saying, but this is a need. This isn't a nice to have. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Councilman Leger?
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I have a few questions for you, if you could approach the podium.
Where's the stand, please?
I like your jacket, man. It's styling tonight. I agree with everyone's point of view up here with respect to a need, and we definitely have a need. I'm just curious why this was the starting point for you. Why was the contract resource our starting point for you rather than a position when you had the choice earlier on in the budget discussion? What do you see? We'll start there, and then I have a few more follow-up questions.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Leger, it was a cost-effective measure. It was a $50,000 on a first-year basis versus a staff position that we're looking at $67,000, $68,000. And I thought that would be, like I said, more cost-effective and more likely to get approval in a supplemental process to get than a staff position would be.
Okay. And help me understand what this resource would do for you.
Well, as we talked about on the 24th, it gives me access to a team of 20-something, 26-plus people who have commercial real estate expertise. They're commercial realtors. They have economic development backgrounds. They have access and the ability to leverage 9,000 contacts with companies across the country that, quite honestly, I don't have that many. That's an astonishing amount. And for me to get to them one by one takes a considerable amount of time, and to data mine all of those and to find the correct contacts and get to the correct people and update is time consuming, extremely so. And having an outside resource like this that has the expertise and the knowledge, it can get to it immediately and work with me to really nail down what's right for Fountain Hills, and not just what's right for ABC City, but to target what's right for us as a community, I thought had great value.
So in essence, what I'm hearing you say, it's outreach, it's an expansive network, and what type of information would they provide you, and then what would you do with that information? Because I think it's important what I've heard folks say in terms of the relationship building, but for me, it's a catch-22. Where's the starting point?
Well, there would be the first few months would be data gathering, much like what we've done in the past, which we've done retail analyses before here in 2009 and I think 12, where we spent $20,000 each on those and got we spent $40,000 and all we got was information. We didn't get a plan. That information has value, but not as much as a plan does. Working with them would give not only that data and that information, our gap and our leakage. What do we need? What are we lacking? What can we support? It would give us a long range and a long-term plan in those first 3 to 4 months moving forward. And I stress that this was a 1 year on a 3-year base, and we would review it annually and see if it would be an option to move forward with additional years that reduce costs because the data is not quite as intense. And no matter what we do, it takes time, and 1 year is not going to bring in 20 retailers.
Would it bring prospective clients to the
Yes.
table? And if so, what would happen at that point? Would you then follow up?
Well, along with them, their contacts would produce information based on our needs and what we're looking for. That includes regionally as well. Local companies, and I hate to name them because I don't want to get it out there that we're going to have them, but local companies, small coffee shops, restaurants that have grown locally and organically, it would include those as well as national firms.
Is it fair to say they would hit the ground running versus a new staff person that would have to ramp up?
There's no doubt about that. The gathering phase of the first few months would allow them to really explode quickly and hit the ground running, as you said, and start attacking. Maybe not the right word, but really start pursuing those companies that we're looking to bring in. And it would take a considerable amount of time with a new staff person for training, for knowledge, for information, for context, because you're looking at somebody who's got probably a couple years experience and is not going to have their contacts built up like they will over time. So this is really a jumping point to really get a boost for us with the retail. And at the vacancy rates at 300,000 square feet and 37%, that's high, and we need to reduce that as fast as we can. And I felt that going this way would allow us to address that issue quicker.
Quicker, okay. And just a few more, Mayor. So I agree with the needs that I'm hearing here, and I did last time around too. For me, it's a process and it's a sequencing, and I keep going back to what I'm hearing is that this could jumpstart the process versus someone that has to have an uptick. We still have our director that will take contacts, if you may, and run with it and build and continue to build those relationships. One just last question, and it's just more of an observation. So here we are with all these vacancies. It's private property. And who's ultimately responsible for filling that space? The government or the private sector?
That wasn't an observation. That's a tough question. I think as a community, it's both. I mean, as a community, we've got a responsibility to create the best quality of life for our citizens, and I think that these types of retail outlets and services provide an increased quality of life that we can help support our building owners in the area. They certainly have a responsibility as well. They have people who, some do, have corporations who own them that market, and commercial realtors that do the marketing for them. Some don't. Some are absentee owners that live in California and have very little care about filling the building or filling a need.
Very good. Mayor, thank you for the extended time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Councilman Yates?
Thank you. Scott, could you clarify, because I'm not sure if the questioning kind of led people to believe that the staff person could potentially do what the marketing consultation contract is. You need the support person separate of the consultation person.
Yeah, they're Madam Mayor and Councilman Yates, there wouldn't be duplicity in there. One is definitely focused on commercial, on the retail side of what I do. That's one leg. There's still the job creation side. There's still targeting our targeted industries, finance, insurance, healthcare. advanced technologies. Those are
Biotech innovation, right? all
those
these.
are the list that we always hear, but those are our companies that we're after. That side still needs to be worked and won't falter at all. That side would stay just as important. And if it were another staff person, that would be largely their role, would be the data mining of that. It would be the surfing the internet, looking for information, for pieces, for anything out there that gives us a little bit of an edge. And we talk about being in the game. I hear that stated a lot. Well, that's great that we're in the game, but how about we be an active player in the game? And that's kind of what I want to be, is an active player in the economic development world for Fountain Hills. We've gotten to the point where we're in the game. We're involved where we needed to be, and I think this is it's a step up for us.
Okay, Councilman Tullis?
Thank you. Here's my position, and it hasn't changed since our last meeting. I don't believe in these marketing agreements. I think we have corporate real estate firms, commercial real estate firms, Kidder Matthews, Cushman and Wakefield. These giants, I'm sure that they invest in these type of resources themselves. I see, and this is my opinion, with all due respect, Scott, I think the phone rings, and your role is predominantly to make sure they know we're a welcoming community and that you identify potential properties in the community if they haven't already identified something that they want to know whether or not it's going to work for their company. So you're the face of Fountain Hills, and then you bring it to staff, you bring it to council, maybe a couple of councilmen, to get a feel for whether or not this could potentially fly. The person I see, if you added someone to your staff, and again, we're policymakers here. It's your decision ultimately. I mean, we're not going to, like Dennis said on the phone, like Nick had indicated, we're looking at you, we're looking at the town manager to make these decisions. This is a discussion, just like it was on the 24th, okay? So please don't think I'm coming across as a know-it-all, because I don't want that to come across. But my thought is that if you have a body and you have someone that can reach out, shake hands, reach out to all these commercial entities that are marketing the businesses that are vacant here, that are contracted with the owners of these businesses, and you share with them, hey, we want to work with you, we want to help you, and what can we do? I'd rather see, personally, a little bit of a kitty that you have some autonomy to offer some incentives for businesses to come in. And I'll give you an example. Dead Heat Brewery. Okay, Andy's a friend of mine. He's a local resident, experienced. He could have gone anywhere with his brewery. He stayed in Fountain Hills because of the beauty of our community, and it's close to his home. He found a great spot. But you know what? It's the relationship that he received with you and the welcoming of the town, and he wants to stay here. But you know what? A little incentive helps. And if you get other businesses like that and you have a little bit of an incentive, I'd rather spend that money on targeted individuals than thinking that we're going to get some big national firm that's going to come in here and do the job. And I agree. It's not our job necessarily to market for all these entities. We have a partnership with them. The sales tax revenue is critical. We want the businesses to succeed. I'm in favor of a human handshake and make it happen, and I apologize for being long-winded, but that's, I'd love to see the results another community of our size has had, investing money in an outside marketing firm to determine what the results have been.
Okay, I think we pretty much got everybody's opinion on how they feel about both, and except for mine, which is that I'm there every day and I see Scott working, and I know that occasionally I have a weekend off, but Scott never has a weekend off because people call him on the weekend, and if it's something that he needs to go out on and he needs to deal with, he deals with it, whether it's Saturday night or Sunday, and so he's working 7 days a week. So how fair is that? Well, I don't think it's that fair. So if you did have an assistant, that person could take a lot of that burden off of you. Maybe you'd still have to handle all those important calls. But EDC is the most important to us. Economic development, considering that we survive on the revenue we get from sales tax, is vital to our community. We're always up here saying that state shared revenue is going down and it's so volatile. We don't know what that's going to be like in the future. We don't know what people would vote for if we put something on the ballot to increase our revenue. What we know is what we have now to deal with, that economic development is vital to this town's survival, and that the one thing we have always heard from residents, they don't care how we do it, they want us to fill those empty stores. And sometimes they don't understand how hard it is. So I like Councilman Brown's suggestion that we put both in the budget. And we start with this contract, and you judge how that's going. And of course, if you feel right out in the beginning that that's not working, and then we move possibly also into another position. But we put both in the budget so that it's there if we need it, because this is important. This is not a nice to have. This is a must have for our community. There's no other way to go. I mean, you've done a tremendous job, but you know, that only means that we might lose you to some other town that sees the great job that you're doing. As Councilman Yates says, your name's already getting around as a guy who really knows what he's doing and delivers. And we have seen some great improvements in our town since you've been on our staff. So we'll get you in 1 minute.
Sorry.
So I really would like to go along with Councilman Brown's suggestion that we put both in the budget, and we go from there. Councilman Magazine, if we can possibly make this our last one, and then we'll go on.
I will be putting a motion on the floor, but I want to make a comment first. I want to ask Scott and Grady questions. I'm going to put them both on the spot. That's in Grady's job description. I'm not sure it's in Scott's. In your experience, and this is putting you on the spot, can you think that you can draw a straight line, or even a dotted line, between one junior staff person and increasing the sales tax in this town, in getting retail outlets to come into this town?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Magazine, in what time frame? In a year?
Year, 2 years, I don't know.
I would say 2 years, yes. I think the first year would be, there would be time involved in that. But that second half of that year, when the comfort is in there and the confidence is in there and the contacts are going and they're working it, then that increases our chances the second half of that first year.
Thanks. Grady, you had to clearly go through line item by line item in this big budget before making any recommendation. Can you indicate what you think 3 or 4 other priorities might be that you're not recommending be funded? And I'm not necessarily saying they're any more important or less important than a staff for economic development, but are there things that you are concerned about that you felt we couldn't fund?
Sure. Just to let you know, when I had all the requests from all the different departments, I see what the workload is in all the different departments, and I see the people that are working on the Fridays and the weekends, and they're certainly putting in a lot of hours. And so, I think that to me is an indicator. However, I know in this case, this was a service level increase, and with the thought that we could possibly increase, our throughput in the whole ED area. But yeah, I would say that there are other high priorities as well. But this is one that the council seems to be really in tune with. But from my perspective, purchasing is an area that we have a real concern with, not just from my perspective, but from the finance director. He's doing he's my eyes and ears, and he's actually functioning as our purchasing or procurement person for the town. We've talked about this in the past with the council. There's other positions in finance and in other departments where they're really lean right now, where we don't really have backup. And when those people are out on vacation or they're out sick, you really feel it because people show up, they want to meet or talk to them, and there's no backup for them. So, I mean, and so when I was looking at basically what you refer to as the green sheets, these are all the supplemental requests. Those are things that we talked about, and I met with each of our department directors individually to look at the supplemental requests as well as their staffing requests and to kind of understand more or less what they were asking for and their justification. And Scott made a really good point of asking for the contract money. He said that would be his first priority. He also understood that the position, while it would be necessary, he thought that could probably hold off for a year or two. And so I said, well, okay, well, that's good to hear because, I just don't think we're quite there yet this year for that. But I've heard all the council members set the service levels for the town. The town manager will recommend service levels, but the ultimate decision makers are the council. So, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to say that I appreciate Councilman Brown's offering what could be a compromise in this situation. But I have to say that I have to stick to my principles, which I laid out in the very beginning. I don't think that money should be in the budget. I think it's something we could consider next year or whatever. I just don't think it should be there. And so I'm going to move that $67,000 for economic department personnel be removed from the budget.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Okay. Anyone like to make a motion on
Mayor.
any of the other proposals?
Mayor, I just want some clarification on what you stated and what Councilman Brown stated. Councilman Brown, are you there?
Councilman Brown?
I am here.
Could
Oh,
you
very good.
restate your position on this again, please?
In the form of a motion.
In the form of a motion, absolutely. So I would move to approve the budget and the retaining of a contract group that is recommended by Scott Cooper, the director. I would recommend to leave in the budget and approve the budget for a one-time staffer, but not to be hired until we see how many usable leads are generated. And secondly, Scott will have to come before the council with the leads and explain how it is being handled prior to making the hire.
Okay, that's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, can we get you have discussion?
I do. I just, while I appreciate the concept of the first discussion of allowing Scott to run a department, this is now back to almost a micromanagement of running the department. And on the 24th, just to clarify, before we make a vote on this, I was substituting the 50 for a position. It wasn't both. So somehow it turned into both since April 24th. So this is a very small part of our budget. I'm willing to go along with this. I'm willing to see whether it works, but I really would like to see some matrix as to whether or not it does. And I'd like to see that, in the first 6 months, a report back to council to help us understand how this contract is going and what fruit is coming from it.
All right, I have a motion and a second, and so let me get a roll call vote on that, just to be sure.
Councilmember Toles,
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter,
Aye.
Councilmember Yates,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Magazine,
Nay.
Councilmember Leger,
Aye.
and Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Mayor 6-1.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much.
I told you it'd only be an hour today up here. All right, Craig, let us go on.
So moving rapidly along, this slide just shows, the 35,000,003 is what we have in the budget currently, which includes both position and the contract. This is a comparison to prior year budgets. And this is the breakdown of where the current budget will be spent by fund and department category. These are the assumptions. They haven't changed from what we heard on the April 24th meeting. And then these are our capital projects, the funding source as well as the cost detailed by project, totaling just over $7 million. Review outstanding bonds that are going to be, would be outstanding as of the end of the next fiscal year. This is what the town manager referred to before, the supplemental requests that were requested versus approved, and for those that were approved, the detail of what areas they were approved in. Summary, 26.6 million in revenue, 35.3 million in expenditures. So what that translates into is the use of reserves, funds accumulated over time of 8.7 million, the majority being in the capital projects fund. This is our current budget compared to next year's budget, 34.1 million versus 35.3, an increase of 3.5%. This is broken down by department for the general fund only. And the general fund only is showing an increase of 12.5%.
Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Leger?
Scott, could you go back? Scott on my mind. I'm sure it's that jacket, I'm telling you. It's just, I just had this vision in my mind there. Would you mind, Craig, going back to slide number 12? Sorry to pull us backwards. I think it's important to point out here that our revenue is 26.6 million and that our expenditures is 35 million. That we're actually spending more than we have in revenues, although we all know that's coming from reserve funds. So the question is, how much longer can that trend continue? You don't have to answer that question. It's just an observation. Thank you.
If I may.
Councilman Yeager?
Along the same lines, back to the outstanding bonds, what is our payment on that first bond? What will that save us once that bond is paid off?
Almost $500,000.
$500,000 annualized? And then it's a domino effect, because then 2020, 19, 20, 2 in 20, and 1 in 21. So what's the net effect over the next 3-4 years?
Well, the Eagle Mountain debt, the bottom one, the GO, is paid from secondary property taxes from just Eagle Mountain residents. So when that goes away, everything goes away.
It's a zero effect.
Right.
Correct.
The community center is the one that will be
Yeah.
impactful.
Community Center.
Yeah, that's the middle one that will have $1,030,000 outstanding that will be paid off in 2020. The first two are the GO bonds, which are once again funded by secondary property taxes.
So it's pass through revenue and expense. Once the expense is paid for, there's no more revenue.
Correct.
But, so now back to the net effect of the community center.
Community center, roughly when it's paid off, it would be roughly $500,000.
Yeah, okay,
Of which the council's already said that they'd dedicate that to pavement management.
I'm with you. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
I'm looking at slide 3, and in FY12, 33.9 million. We just approved, at least tentatively, for FY17, a mere $200,000 more than FY12.
Councilman Magazine, that's $2 million.
I'm off a little bit. Can you, what what are the, in the, sort of wide swath, what accounts for that? For the fact that it's so close? Or is it just too many things to enumerate?
Too many things, plus I wasn't here at the time and wasn't actively involved in looking at what the town was spending.
You can make some assumptions, though. We did have some debt service that has since retired. I don't recall what that amount was annually. Do you remember?
I do not.
Okay, so that and probably capital projects, were probably the major things. Because I think if you look at operationally, as far as staffing and benefits and all that, we pretty much have been kind of like going up on a gradual slope up. But it's been pretty consistent on the operating budgets.
I just find that pretty astonishing and something the public ought to focus in on. Thank you.
And then can I just make a comment, Mayor, Mayor and Council? If you go to the slide where I think Henry had a question on, was it slide number 12? It says fiscal year 17-18 budget summary. And there was a comment made regarding the use of transfers. In fact, that our revenues were 26, but our expenditures were 35. Well, just to remind the council too that we had a number of things like development fees that are paying for Adaro and are also paying for the fire station. So that's $6 million right there. And then we're not really going after any of our like rainy day fund or our general fund reserves, but we generally call those reserves for like the development fees and things of that sort, the capital fund that we use. So that's what it appears that we're spending out of reserves, but they're dedicated reserves for those purposes.
Okay.
So this was a breakdown by department.
I don't disagree with
And this is the recap between last year's budget and this year's budget. The big number is the other changes, and that $1 million consists primarily of the $950,000 that we put in for the third-party inspections. To address Councilman Leger's comment, these are our current reserves. As you can look at capital projects funds, it's down to $3 million, so it's going to take some time at our current pace to build that up again. The Highway User Revenue Fund, as you all know, pavement management is not cheap, and that can be easily used in the course of 1 year. This is the org chart. Hasn't changed. I haven't added any new departments or divisions. Looking at personnel, we would be up 2 from prior years. Civil plans examiner and permit technician, which are both part-time, and then the ED analyst. 44 full-time, 27 part-time. We're proposing a 2.5% general increase to all employees. Arizona Metropolitan Trust has saved money on our employee benefit plans. And total personnel costs $4.2 million, an increase of 6% over prior years. This is broken down. We have 5 funds that we pay salaries out of. The majority is obviously general fund. Once again, this is the amount that we're proposing as the tentative budget, which is the maximum amount that we would be able to spend. Our next steps tonight is the first step, which is the resolution for the tentative budget. The next step would be adopting a final budget on June 1st. Along with that adoption, we would have a budget implementation policy memo, as well as approving org charts, the FTE schedule, job description, and pay plans. And at the second meeting in June, we would adopt the tax levies for Cottonwoods, Eagle Mountain, and the town.
Okay, any further questions for Craig?
Mayor, go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. Craig, thank you. You can't say enough about gathering this information. It's, I can imagine, exhausting. As I've shared, and we all have different backgrounds. In the private sector, we try to simplify this. Is there any other way? The mayor and I were even talking today on, this is now my 5th year on council. Every year we seem to get a different package, and we're kind of going through to try to figure this out. And although we all have the background to eventually figure this out, is there some simplified way, or are we required by our auditors or the state to put this whole budget in this form? I'm just wondering, for simplicity, to Vice Mayor Magazine's point, to be open to the public so that everyone can see, because sometimes you cherry pick and things don't make sense, and then you have to answer, 2 or 3 questions. I'm kind of coming to you open-handedly. Is there another budget that you can present in a more simplified way that makes more sense?
My answer is no. Attached to the resolution that is before you is the schedules that we're required by statute to present for the Auditor General. That could be all that we present. It would not provide any detail. What we're doing now is primarily established many years ago by my predecessor to comply with the Government Finance Officers Association to promote transparency for the citizens. I hear you saying that, yes, we're so transparent that we can't find anything now. I don't have an answer. Most of the budgets are 300 to 400 pages long in order to qualify for the Government Finance Officers Association. We view that as an accomplishment and recognition by our peers.
Touche.
Mayor and council, though, to the point, and I've had some discussions with some of the council members on this very topic, and I think that Craig is absolutely right. I think that the content that we provide you and the public is very comprehensive. And it's something that we use the budget as a document throughout the year that provides the staff guidance and such. We have a program slash line item budget, so it just takes up lots and lots of pages and room. We do, for the sake of the public, we do put together a really nice, is it a 4-page budget and brief or budget summary?
Budget and brief.
And we will make that available to the public and to the council. We have talked about organizing this, the book differently next year so that we could provide maybe more of an executive summary and also have tabs. So we'll do what we can to help that process so you can easily find what you're looking for. And I think that will be a good thing for us to do as well. However, the content, it is what it is, and I think the staff does a really good job of putting that together, but I understand. I have sometimes difficulty finding what I'm looking for as well, and I come back to my friend Craig here who helps me find what I'm looking for, but we will work on that for next year.
Madam Mayor, as a follow-up, I more than appreciate that there's some statutory reasons why we have to do a certain way. My budget, I manage about $70 million, and it's amazing what I can make some incredible income statements, cash flow statements with the same information. I'm just wondering if it's a software thing or something else, because the information's there, it's just kind of how we show it. So
We'll take a look at improving this for next year.
Thank you.
Do all municipalities use this type of budget?
The budget is governed by generally accepted accounting principles, so it has to be prepared, if not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, it has to then be reconciled to generally accepted accounting principles.
Right.
So we could present less detail, but then someplace we would have to provide the reconciliation to get it back to the GAAP standard. So as far as do all the municipalities follow GAAP? Yes, they do.
Okay.
They all prepare a budget just like ours? No, they don't.
No, I guess, isn't this a compartmentalized budget, isn't that usually what this is called, where you break down people according to the jobs they do, and you could be paying for someone who does a job here, and then half of a person does a job there, so it's sometimes kind of difficult to know what the whole person is.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's cost allocation that you
Yeah.
just brought up.
I don't know what it's called, but it's confusing.
We also include that with our financial practices as well.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, just a suggestion, and Grady and I have talked about this a couple of times. I'm stating the obvious. It shouldn't take 100 pages to get to the numbers. But if it's going to be reordered, if there are going to be changes, maybe we could get some kind of an outline in advance of how you're proposing to do it. Because once we get a draft of the whole thing, it's pretty late to change it substantially. So just an idea to give us some kind of it doesn't have to be exhaustive, but give us some ideas how you're reordering it, how you're changing it, so that we can at least give you a reaction.
Point of information, it's 500 pages, 460.
But are you fine with the presentation and how we do this?
Oh.
Because I will tell you, I've worked in other cities, and obviously they're larger, but where the department directors are actually having to present their own budgets to the council. And I think that this is actually a lot more streamlined than what I've seen in other cities. And I'll tell you, this is probably the best process I've seen of all the different cities I've worked in. So and I'm not saying it because I'm part of it, it's just, I've liked what the history has been here with these budget meetings and presentations.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilman Leger, and then hopefully we can get a motion and move along.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. And sorry about earlier, being
No problem.
polite to my council member over there. Something I mentioned that jumped out at me at our last budget meeting, and it's not a major expense, but there's other issues I have with it. We have $30,000 in the budget for a visitor center, and I won't take us down a rabbit hole, and I'll be as succinct as possible, but I started thinking about this. Would it make more sense to have that in the FY 18-19 budget rather than the 17-18 budget? And the reason I say that is twofold. First and foremost, I'm not sure that that space will be available in this fiscal year, number one. And number two, I'd certainly like to see what type of agreement we're getting into and what that contract is, because I firmly believe that although we share that responsibility, my research indicates that so do Chamber of Commerce's, and in some cases share a larger responsibility in terms of a visitor center. So I simply will make a motion so we can move along to move that expenditure into the FY 18-19 budget versus the FY 17-18 budget.
Madam Mayor?
Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion on the motion?
I agree.
Grady, do you want to?
Yeah, if I may, I just want to address this. The town staff and I had considered actually a visitor center on our own, and we were actually looking at Fountain Plaza Fountain side. And we were also looking downtown here, right on the avenue. As you're aware, the Chamber currently operates a visitor center out of their current office. They will be relocating the Chamber to the avenue in the Park Place development. And they are looking at being in that building around November. They were looking at a breakaway space that would be a storefront right next to their building with access from the Chamber, and they would be providing the staffing and volunteers for this function. We're totally on board with it at a staff level, but one of the things that we want to do before we actually commit to that is we want to have an agreement. An agreement would come back to council. And so we were looking at having something that might be coming back to either June or probably August, because we're still trying to work out the details. As an example, we told the Chamber absolutely not. They were wanting to just have it be members only that can have brochures and items to promote tourism there. And we were saying, no, it has to be any, it has to be any and everybody that would be appropriate for that. So I understand Councilmember Leger's concern, and what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, is leave that money in the budget. We'll come back to you. Ultimately, we'll make that decision with this agreement when it comes before you. And that's just a request.
Councilman Leger?
Mayor, if I may, is it realistic to think that that building is going to be ready and prepared and that space can be punched out by November for anyone to make a decision? Just looking at the construction and...
Gray box, vanilla
I'll default to, Mayor, if I can default to Cecil on that, or Dennis Brown, if he's still with us, he's a contractor. Dennis, you with us?
I am still with you.
Councilman Brown,
And-
do you think they'll be ready by November? Gray box.
You know, I don't see that happening, and the only reason I don't see it happening is that they will have to have scaffolding all the way around the building in order to finish the exterior of the building, which is going to stop the access to the storefronts. Now, I've seen some pretty well-organized construction projects in my life, but I don't see that happening in the 17-18 budget.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? If not, maybe I need a roll call vote on that?
Councilmember Brown?
Aye?
Councilmember Tolis?
Nay.
Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Mayor 6-1.
All right. So was that with the tentative budget? Did you do the whole?
No, that was,
No, that was just that. So we still need a motion on the tentative budget.
Mayor, so moved. I move to accept the budget as presented with the,
Reduction of.
With the
with the reduction of 30,000 as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Mayor 7-0.
All right, next is discussion with possible direction to staff related to the legislative bulletin. Anything, Craig? No, Craig, you're done.
Let's ask Scott.
You're both done. Grady? Maybe moot, you said.
Yeah, as
Yes.
council's aware, the budget's been, it's starting to be worked out, some of the budget issues, but I have nothing at this point.
Today should be it, maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know, but today might be it, sine die. Okay, so, council, any direction to staff? No, we don't have that. And then we have activities. I just have a few things. Does anybody have anything they want to go first? Nope. Okay. I spoke about economic development at the annual NPOA meeting. It was a pleasure to see such a big crowd and be able to explain what was been going on around town. Grady and I attended the CAP annual luncheon for mayors and managers, which brought us up to date on what was going on at the Central Arizona Project. They're currently engaged in. It was an excellent presentation about the water and power issues, and especially related to the future of the Navajo generating station. There was a ribbon cutting to celebrate the 100th year anniversary of Washington Federal Savings, which is also been located here in town for the past 17 years. You can tell that we're getting closer to summer because things are quieting down, and that's it. So, motion to adjourn. And a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.